So today we're going to be filming a video to do with the bookshelf. One of my favourite places in the house. I do apologise for how bad the footage is, but I'm just going to have a look at some of my books that I read. I may not have read them recently, just to warn you, but the most recent book that I have finished, I just haven't had time to start another one because I've been so busy. So let's have an explore. There you can see Slick just looking at the bookshelf. So let's just get straight into it. So the last book that I actually read, there's my bookmark, there's the book, is The Reindeer Girl, which is a book to do with how Lottie loves to hear her great mother tell her childhood stories to do with the reindeers, and it's kind of about traditional folk parties, that kind of thing, wearing traditional costumes for the Norwegian folk. Is what this book's to do with a bit, and how it's great grandmother's birthday and has a traditional party. Pretty sure that's what it's about. I can't remember because I have been wanting to film this for ages. Literally, I've got a new book series and I've been reading through that series for a long time, so I'm going to go through the series gradually. So the next one that I read before that is The Snow Bear, and that's to do with Christmas and how this girl called Sarah helps a granddad to build an igloo. Then she wakes up in the igloo with this dream and she's journeying, wants to go home and wonders will she ever find her way home. So that's then we've got another one that I've recently read before that is The Snow Cat. Snow Cat is about how Christmas is approaching and how Belle is staying at her granddad's new home, and it's an old Victorian home, and then Belle helps Charlotte find her sister Lucy's beloved cat, and it turns out, I think, that she actually prefers staying at her grand's to... She thinks that's just a view at the blurb. Because I haven't read these in a long time, I kind of forgotten what's happened in the story, so kind of most of it will come off the blurb. I'm sorry about that, but... So the next one I'm going to share with you is The Snow Leopard, and it's about how Isabel tries to find out what she can do to protect these leopards and trying to keep her mother and cubs out of danger, when it's also another Christmas one. Like, these are all Christmas stories. Isabel's had to leave her home and go to a new school as well. And I can remember the book that I actually read before that, another Christmas book, there's a theme with Christmassy books, was The Christmas Guest, and I actually thought this book was a bit sad. Times because Teddy runs away from home a week before Christmas. He's far too excited to worry about what lies ahead, but soon he realises how cold and scary the world is, and his perfect adventure now seems like it's a mistake. Teddy discovers the Wood family and their nice cottage. Claire, Ben and their daughter Emily are a family that Teddy is desperate to have, but Emily's ill. She has meningitis. So stressed with Christmas round the corner, and they sort of think of giving Teddy to the council because they think it's too hard to look after. Teddy knows he gets on with Emily, so he tries to find every way he can to stay. But it's not sure if he'll ever find a home or not. He does in the end, but as you go throughout the book, you're not quite sure. So those are just some books. Other books I also like reading, we'll go through. Just a little toy that's in the way of my books. So then got My Sister Jodie, and this story is sad because Pearl and Jodie are sisters. Pearl is younger, smaller, shy and anxious. Jodie is nearly 3 times older, bold, brash and bad, and Pearl adores her. Pardon me, I do apologise. When their parents get a new job at the posh Manchester College, the girls are suddenly thrust into a new life. In their new home, things are different. Jodie's always been the leader, and now it's Pearl who's making new friends. Jodie doesn't fit in with the snooty teenagers in her class and just seems to be getting into more and more trouble. Maybe Pearl doesn't need Jodie as much as she used to, but Jodie needs her, and when the school fireworks night comes around and a tragic event occurs, Pearl realises quite how much she needs her sister Jodie. Basically, Jodie takes her own life, throat trips and falls out the window and breaks her neck, and then she has a funeral. It's really sad at the end. I literally cry every time. Nearly cry every time I read it. It is hard to put them back on the shelf when you're trying to film, so I do apologise if it's not so good. I'm just not very good at putting them back. So that's... So what I'll do is I'll take the next book out, put this one down, take the next book out, and put that one on the bookshelf. This next one that I really like is Michael Morpurgo, Born to Run. And there's like 3 different stories in there, like there's 3 different people this dog goes to. The first time, it's part of a litter of puppies that get abandoned, and Patrick saves them, and then basically what happens is he calls one of them best mate and keeps it in the end, and then best mate gets stolen. So then goes on to a new home and then gets called Bright Eyes. Be fast, Bright Eyes, be very fast. And it's a case of this girl called Becky. The only good days were when Craig wasn't at home and she wasn't at school. So when it was just her and her mother, and she liked the dogs, and Craig was always going on about to her, do not stroke the dogs, do not interact with the dogs, they're just machines in a way. And then she runs away from home because she doesn't like Craig. And then she sort of on this scary mission to try and find somewhere, and then because she sees Alfie getting killed in a way, so she then writes her mum a letter, which I've got up in the book, so I'll read it. I'm just going away with Bright Eyes. I don't know where, just somewhere. Don't know where, just away. I know it's not your fault, but you promised me Alfie was going to be looked after. That's what he told you. That's what he told me. I can't even write his name. I hate him so much. Sometimes I've even hated you, Mum, because you take his side, because you won't stand up to him enough, even when he is Dad, and because you won't leave him even though you know that he's a monster, and I just can't understand that. I want to tell you what I've just seen, but I can't write it because I remember it too well. Just tell him that I know what really happened to Elfie and to the dogs when he sends them away, because I've seen it with my own eyes. I'm not going to let it happen to Bright Eyes. One day even Bright Eyes will start losing, or he'll break down like Elfie, and there'll be no use for any more racing. Then he'll do the same thing to Bright Eyes as he did to all the others, so I'm taking him away before the Land Rover does. Don't worry about me. Bright Eyes will look after one another. I love you, Mum, but I just can't be around him anymore, Becky. So she escapes then in the middle of the night and has a rucksack filled with stuff. And it's so good. And then when Becky ends up in hospital, he goes off to live with a man, and he gets called Paddywhack. It is such a good book, I'm not going to kid, but this book is so good. Like, really good. And I'm just trying to get it back on the shelf, because I might actually be succeeding this time. So, that's basically that, really. Sorry if it's gone a little bit dark. Now we're gonna look at another book, Felix the Railway Cat, which I've only had time to read once. I do like the book a lot, and it's a really good book. Basically, it's about how Felix, the Yorkshire Railway, gets a cat, and they call it Felix. And so much goes on, like, it's such a good book, literally. All the staff absolutely adore their railway cat. And there's some sad bits, like chapter 27 is the saddest bit, like the hardest goodbye. And I will read you some of it. Are you coming down meeting today if you're feeling alright? G. Hunter asked her a long time. Angie, to a long-term colleague on the phone. Maybe not today, Miss H, Billy replied in a hoarse whisper. But I'll be back soon, don't worry. Don't you be messing about with any stuff now. I know what you're like. Angie hung up, smiling despite herself at Mr. Grumpy's words. She and Billy had worked together for so long now that they had a kind of friendship where they could rib each other and call each other out. Billy was forever telling her she'd messed up his recycling system by throwing some things in the wrong bin, and she was forever telling him he was in her office to hand over to her and not to inspect her rubbish. Angie and Billy stayed in touch while he was off, and Angie kept him up to date with all the developments at the station so that he'd be up to speed when he got back. The most significant of these was that Paul, the station manager, was moving on to pastures new. Andy Congham would be fulfilling the role again until they found a permanent replacement, so was Andy that Billy telephoned when he had some news of his own to share. The sore throat of his wasn't getting any better, and it wasn't a cough or a cold or a minor infection, it was cancer. And he felt stunned, even though Billy had been off sick for a while now. Andy had been convinced he would be back to work soon, and Billy too had been convinced. In fact, everyone at the station had been, for it had only been a month or so since they'd seen him, and none of them thought it could be anything so serious. After the phone call, things moved very quickly. It was an aggressive form of the disease. Billy's weight plummeted dramatically. His condition deteriorated so fast that Andy felt he had no time to come to terms with the news of his colleague's illness before receiving another phone call, this time from Billy's wife. She shared the news that shockingly on the 31st of March 2015, Billy had died. That was actually quite a sad bit, so we're going to leave it there. So that's me just stretching because I can't quite get it in, and it's been so many books I've got, like literally I have a whole library, so that's me just explaining some books. Bye guys.